Hey, what is up, guys? Asurai here, and with me now is Raf, and we are doing the first episode, the pilot episode of the Quickcast podcast. So, got the idea to just create a kind of series talking about keeping up to date with VCT in the Philippines for 2023 for the regular season. And we got a couple of things that we wanted to kind of discuss here. And one of those things is, I think, the outcome of what happened with week one, wherein I honestly felt that we had a good start of players and teams that have come into this regular season that isn't, that isn't Team Secrets. Like, everybody's saying, oh, Team Secret this, Team Secret that. And again, they've already deserved their praise and everything, but it's also nice that we're bringing in the newcomers or old players in new teams.
Absolutely. I mean, talking about Team Secret, they are in the franchise league, of course, guys. And this is where we basically bring up the new blood, I guess, or our newer generation of talents that could potentially represent us on a bigger stage or at least more exposed stage to the world. Yeah, sir. I mean, we got a lot to talk about. The first week was honestly, how would I put this right? I mean, we expected a lot of our top two teams to basically perform the way they did, and they delivered. I feel like what surprises me is some of the losses that the teams that are perennial 3 and 4. Because if you look at yesterday, right, I think it was Sky Encore who, I guess, honestly dropped the ball against G-Lab. I saw a little bit of that match. Was a little shaky on Sky Encore's part, but again, it's only the first week. This is basically going to be the feeling out process.
Yeah, we had a lot of discussion about how Sky Empire, also known as Sky Encore, I think it's Sky Empire
Sky
now.
Empire.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah, so basically the team is still fairly new, so to speak. They've only really beaten a couple of Tier 2 and Tier 3 teams that we were mentioning, and yesterday was the first true test of how well they can really perform in the regular season. And what was kind of interesting there is they went up against, I think, one of the bottom two teams that at least we touted them as, which was GameLab Alpha. But GameLab Alpha really surprised me. But more than anything else, I think Sky Empire was just really underperforming in that particular series. There was a specific, I think, scenario or multiple scenario sequences in Pearl, their first map, where they felt super disjointed, not knowing where to peek, not knowing where to refrag. And I think this is starting to, or at least that showed, the incoherence of just the play style of Sky Empire.
Man, incoherence is a bit of a big word, honestly, because, I mean, okay, so we do expect quite a bit from this core because we've seen them a lot in VCT beforehand.
Yeah.
And we've seen them compete at the highest level, of course. So to lose to a team like, again, this is not to discredit GameLab Alpha, right? But just because GameLab Alpha is the newer kid on the block, we will automatically put them as the underdog.
Yeah.
So the way that Sky Empire lost it, I think it's just really, really surprising. And at the same time, a big lesson for them that despite being the veterans and being the more experienced ones, they still have to keep their craft at the tippy top level, I guess, Asurai.
Yeah.
Maybe it really is just the first week nerves, or maybe because they're really, how do I put this too? Like, they're sizing up everybody, because I feel like there were a lot of plays in that game where Sky Empire just did not look like Sky Empire. A lot of risk that they don't normally take, a lot of info that they would gather safely on a normal day. Just felt like it was a gamble.
Yeah. And since we're on the podcast, right, we'll probably talk about how the org itself is in a state of transition. Before they were known as Grind Sky, now it's Sky Encore, Sky Empire. So with all of that being said, they could be in a position where even the players and the teams specifically are still transitioning, right, from all of the adjustments in the background, stuff like that. Can't really say specifically because I don't really know what's going on. Just to clarify things, guys. I'm not how do you say this, a whistleblower or something like that. That's the only term.
I feel like leaker would be a better term, because whistleblower just feels so incredibly strong.
Yeah, okay, leaker. Anyways, but at least looking from the outside, that's what it kind of looks like for me. Anything else other than that, you know what? It's still week one. As I keep mentioning in the broadcast, that there still is 4 more weeks to go. Lots of adjustment time. We are on a 3 to 4 week hiatus, or 4-day hiatus before each and every week. So there's plenty of time for these teams to start to make better what they already have. Now, I guess moving away a little bit from Sky Empire, right? The other team that, or the big thing, the big reveal for week one has definitely got to be the debut match for NAOS Esports. Now, NAOS has played, a couple of tournaments already, at least I think late December as well as early January. And this is the NAOS that has Wits, that has Ja, that has Papi Chulo, a really star-studded roster. And I think that they didn't really disappoint with any of the matches that we've seen them on. And they faced against a team that was considered to be the PH number one as of the moment, which is SR Nacague. But what do you think about the performance of NAOS here?
Well, I feel like the performance of NAOS was other than expected, right? It was really well.
Yeah.
Rather, they really played that matchup well because even backstage, I was talking about how this is a very, very losable match for them because SR Nacague have been super refined. They've been grinding it out. They've honestly spent the most time together as a core. And we saw how clean they can be against even international teams, right? I believe this was Africa. Yeah, when we were doing the Africa TV thing. So if they really showed their infancy and potentially the clashing of the styles between NDG and Mojer with the older core, or rather the more, I guess, veteran squad with, what was it, Wits, Papi, and Ja, right?
Yeah, the big three from the CSGO days.
Oh, yeah.
We can talk about it now because we're not in the broadcast.
Oh, yeah, Counter-Strike. I love Counter-Strike. Okay. Actually, no, I do love Counter-Strike.
Yeah, we're going to play that later. We're going to play that later.
I love all games, you know what I'm saying? But that being said, I feel like, how do I put this? Because who is our top three teams, really? Like, I feel like the top one is a toss-up between Oasis and NAOS, right? Who is our clear number three? Is it SR Nacague? I think it is, right?
SR
Especially
Nacague
with how
for sure.
Sky Encore, especially how Sky Encore kind of dropped the ball, like I said.
Yeah, even before they dropped the ball, I think we were already talking about how SR Nacague were the team really to beat because they already have proven. Again, I think that was October, November, and December when they were just on a tear going up against multiple teams locally and internationally. We casted the Africa Southeast Asia Invitational and they did pretty well against the teams there. So we were surprised. It's like saying,
they did.
All right, they were good. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, right? It's so hard to gauge considering the amount of talent we actually have on our side of things too.
Yeah.
Like, again, any one of these players in our top 8 right now on VPL PH, it's crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
VCT is still a long road for all these guys, but like I said, NAOS have been maturing fairly quickly. I feel like finally they're sort of gluing, or at least in the matchup we saw, they did lose Pearl, but I'm not surprised with that because SR Nacague is so good on Pearl.
Yeah.
What does look really good for them now is Wits and his flexibility. I feel like with this roster, Wits is going to be running on full potential. Yeah. He's not going to be held back by anything, or he's not going to be held back by any system per se.
Yeah.
So with Wits Unleashed, they could go places, man. They could honestly be one of the most top-heavy teams we have, if not the most top-heavy teams.
Here's one thing that kind of popped up into my head with NAOS in general, right? You were mentioning about the big three and then the new two, but I think what also is to be considered here is the ideology of the teams that these players have come from. For SBE, one of the things that reminded me is just how quickly they can adjust to plays. Not really anything too fancy with how they execute strats, but they're very quick on their feet. They're also, as you mentioned, just gods in the pistol rounds or the thrifty rounds, which they have won multiple times when they went up against SR Nacague, and then somehow managing to merge that with really good cohesion with plays, right? You were mentioning how Wits was so adaptable and such, but the whole team themselves was really good on how they did their set strategies. Wits actually brought out the Harbor, which we were so excited to see, and he made it look so effortless. And I think aside from just the team doing so well, NAOS putting effort into picking up the support staff has also been proving ROI for the NAOS team, which is really good to see. So I kind of just want to know how far this can go, or was it just the first week wonders that, some of these teams tend to enjoy when they're on their debut?
If I remember correctly, it's Amix, right?
Yeah, their coach. Staff. Yeah, and it's already public. I think that they're looking for assistant coaches and analysts as well. So they want to at least up the ante on the support staff in terms of numbers as well, which is what Oasis Gaming, the other team in this tournament, is much known for as well.
Small segue. Which team does 2766 coach again? I
SR
know he's
Nacague.
in VCT.
SR Nacague.
Oh my goodness! So
Yeah.
that was Amix versus 2766. So something for all you newer fans out there, or for those who haven't heard of this information before. But Amix and 2766 used to be inseparable. When they used to compete in Counter-Strike together, they were always the wonder duo, or again one of those type of players or type of sets of players. But in any case, moving back towards the topic, I think NAOS have been doing really, really well. And I just feel like, man, it's kind of hard to say too that they have any weak links. I just really feel like it's the cohesion, right? Again, we've been looping back and forth with that, but it's really the cohesion.
Absolutely.
And honestly, I kind of forgot the question you were asking. What was that again?
It's more, again, I just gonna go back to the point where it feels like there is not really a question, but more of just something that I kind of noticed that I think they're just able to take what they already learned. Yeah, what they already learned from their previous teams to the next level. Again, the SBE mantra of just being able to adjust on the fly, and again, nothing too fancy in terms of what strategies they employ, but rather just their rotations, their ability to read their opponents, and then adding that to good use of utility. I think because of Amix at the coaching helm, because Amix has already proven when he was in Hashira before that, as well as was Sunsparks, that he was also a really good planner or devious mastermind behind how you can use your utility really, really well. So that mixed up is making NAOS look really good, at least from that week one.
Yes, macro understanding is great, and it does help a lot too that, like you said, right, they have the overview with Amix, and they have the general experience and just the high game IQ of, again, this is high relative to our top 1% scene here. The very, very high IQ of the old core, or rather, the three-headed beast of NAOS, plus them guiding the young bloods, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that is such a potent and dangerous combination because they could just generally throw out an idea. And again, this is kind of us looking inwards to it. We don't necessarily know what's going on in that coaching staff because naturally, right, the coach is not going, oh, hey guys, this is what we're going to do. This is exactly how we're going to play out.
Yeah.
So yeah, the assumption is, of course, Amix is going to go through a lot of the macro while the finer details and how to adjust on a lot of those situations. And naturally, will come down to the players. Backed with the experience that the three-headed beast has, it's going to be so dangerous.
Yeah.
So I think another question that we can address, Asar, when is that not going to work, right? What are the situations that that combination just cannot overpower? What do you think?
I honestly am not sure yet. They look unbeatable right now. Again, it's just the first week. Everybody just goes through one game at a time. But I honestly can't tell how far this team can go, at least against the other 7 teams that they have to compete up against. And speaking of which, I guess the only big threat to NAOS right now would have to be Oasis Gaming, right? Because you were mentioning this several times, if not multiple if not a lot of times, when we're not on stream, where if Oasis lose against bottom teams, this org just kind of, shot the bed.
I feel like
with the amount of support that they put on their team.
I know, I get it. No, I feel like this was a consensus that everybody agreed upon, not just me. That because basically the Oasis peeps right now are kind of like the Golden State Warriors. They have the strength in numbers. They literally have so many people in their coaching staff.
It's
and
like
they have
3, I think.
They have a star-studded roster. Honestly, this is by far the best roster we have, or at least the most well-rounded roster we have in the league as of the moment, or at least in our local league. Or in our local circuit, rather, sorry. But that being said, this doesn't take into account on, I guess, the mental maturity of the players because despite the experience, they're still very young. I feel like that's the definite edge NAOS have over Oasis. I feel like NAOS is very hard to break, you know what I mean? Like they could be down 1-7, they could be down 1-8, but they're gonna be swinging for the fences every single time. I'm not saying Oasis don't. I just think NAOS have the capacity to do that to a further extent.
But here's the thing: Oasis has, I think, done a fantastic job at taking care and developing their players, whether it's the old guard or the newcomers to the team. And the player that really stood out to me from the NAOS roster has got to be Georggyyy. Georggyyy, who start of 2022 up until late 2022 was all about going ham, the Boracay jet, but Oasis somehow managed, or Georggyyy himself has evolved, understood, matured into such a complete player, knowing where to pick, when to pick, finding fights that nobody can win against him. He is just on such a different level than he was before, and it's so scary to go up against an Oasis that has a fully loaded team, and then Georggyyy at the helm just leading that team as well.
Absolutely. Georggyyy has evolved quite a bit, as we mentioned. He's truly turning into the one of the most premier duelist specialists we have in our country.
Yeah.
And it's really been showing, right? I don't think there's any blemishes in the record of Oasis, at least very recently, if I'm not mistaken. Asar, do correct me if I'm wrong. I don't have my stat sheet open with me right now.
They haven't lost anything yet, I think. Yeah.
See? So, yeah, right. They're very, very good right now. But at the same time, there's a minimum excellence for them to be, or rather to maintain, before they're considered a bust of a team. Because I feel like even going second, as we mentioned, is completely unacceptable for them, for the star-studded roster, for the star-studded coaching staff, and just org in general, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
But now I move on to my player. I think it's going to be Blurred. Blurred is, I've been looking at this guy and I've been, what?
You took my answer.
What? I thought you said Georggyyy was yours.
Yeah,
no,
okay, fine. I'll take Georggyyy. You take Blurred. All right.
No. So I get dibs because me and Blurred are literally from the same place.
All right.
And again,
You're
this
both
is
Cebuanos,
also
okay.
of course, man, absolutely. It's pretty much like, as I mentioned, right? Georggyyy has, or rather, Blurred has been a player that I've been paying attention to ever since the conception of that OG NAOS roster with Kakarot, with everybody in Blurred, right?
Yeah.
What I think that Blurred has a definite advantage over the other younger players or the other quote unquote young up and comings. He's not even up and coming. He's already really good.
Yeah.
He's young, so his aim is still going to be as sharp as it can be, but his IQ and the way that he tempers himself in a lot of situations is, I feel like it's unmatched for his age. He's very mature. He gets one pick, he'll bounce. You know, if he feels like he can't push the tempo, he'll be very wise and just play the I'm hard to kill card.
Yeah.
And other than that, he's been developing really, really good. As far as I heard too, the kid doesn't have an ego at all. He's been pretty calm. You don't necessarily hear anything bad about him either. And that's really good, especially with the younger folk.
Yeah. He's such a quiet player as well. You remember when I'm not sure if you joined us then, but we got invited to the NAOS office and I was able to see Blurred and he was just super chill. Just, again, not really minding anybody, just playing his own, practicing during their free time. Really just a solid and very humble player at the core of him. So I'm very happy that he is finding success with Asurai PH. So with all of that, I think that wraps up our teams that we were mentioning, the players that we were touting out. Georggyyy and Blurred looking really good for week number 1.
Duelist gang.
Yeah, there are also others players, but we just wanted to keep this short. Something to watch out for as well, guys, for next week is, I guess, the matches themselves, right? We have, I think, one of the biggest matches that we'll be seeing for week number 2, which is Oasis Gaming and NAOS Esports. This is the first time. So we already have week 1. They've warmed up. They've got their bearings straight already. They understand what they're going into this tournament, and now they have a shot to just show who the head honcho is for this regular season, because both teams are looking just nigh unstoppable. I mean, yeah, Oasis did lose one game against Sky Empire in the first series that they played, but it ended 2-1. But still, you do see that Oasis is still on that trajectory to being one of the top teams, if not already the top team in the Philippines. And again, going up against NAOS is going to be a big deal for them.
It's a big test. It's definitely a big test. So I guess we move on to that question where what do we expect for the upcoming week?
Yeah.
I feel like whoever captured that week 1 magic, especially this is to the newer teams and teams that don't have too much support staff, you guys better do your research, because you bet your ass that everybody who has a coach, who has an analyst, is going to be going up and down, scrubbing through every single VOD that we've had for the last weekend, and they're going to be dissecting that as hard as they can.
Yeah.
And that being said, again, Oasis have a clear advantage over everyone else, right? I mean, strength in numbers. They literally have 4 coaches.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Okay. Another thing I wanted to add before we do end this is another thing to expect kind of for next week is there's kind of this tiering about the matchup of teams that kind of make me feel like there's tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 teams right now in the regular split. We have the NAOS Oasis match. We have the Stream Raiders Nacague versus Asurai PH match. And then we have the Game Lab Alpha versus Puggers match. So next week at least makes it feel to me that the narrative would be who beats who and how does this adjust the way we look at them as teams, stack up on top of each other coming into week number 2. Because this is the perfect, I think, best of 3 matchups that we can ever want in terms of just knowing where the power levels are for these teams. So that's all for me.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with you. I mean, we're going to solidify where the teams are going to be placed going into that second week.
Yeah.
Another thing is, for a lot of these players, I guess for the newer teams again, I don't think they're used to this type of format where they're going to be repeatedly butting heads with the same teams, right? So they have to constantly innovate. They have to constantly find a way to exploit a certain weakness or evolve to cover up their own weakness.
Yeah.
And that being said, Astor, I guess I'm just excited for week 2 also. Hey, who knows? I might not even be in my house casting for week 2. I'm just saying. It's a little bit of a preview.
All right. Foreshadowing. Yeah. And I mean, 2023, Valorant, Relentless. Anyways, guys, that's it for the pilot episode of the Quickcast podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you on the next one. Ciao and bye.